Hello fellow coffee botherers, I'm Kev from coffeeblog.co.uk and this is the fourth video in my series on the Sage or Breville Barista Pro. If you've not seen the other videos, click here or see the links in the description. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about steaming milk with the Sage or Breville Barista Pro. If you have the Barista Express, click here for the milk steaming tutorial I did with that machine. I'm doing these videos because the process is slightly different with each machine. Even with the Bambino Plus, which features the same 4-hole steam tip and the same newer thermojet heater, the process is just slightly different. And click here for the milk steaming guide for the Bambino Plus. If you've watched other milk steaming tutorials which haven't been done using the same machine you're using, you might find that what's working for the person doing the tutorial doesn't quite work the same for you. Some of this is just experience, as it is a bit harder than it looks and practice makes perfect. But a lot of it is that the specific process that will work the best depends on your machine. Firstly, just to quickly explain what we're doing when we steam milk. When we steam milk, we have three goals. One is to aerate the milk, to introduce air in the form of very small bubbles. Next is to distribute these tiny bubbles throughout the milk. And finally, to heat the milk to our desired temperature. To create small bubbles for microfoam, for latte art, we want gentle aeration, which sounds like a subtle hissing or ripping paper sound. And this is done by only slightly breaking the surface of the milk with a steam tip. To create stiff foam for more traditional old school cappuccinos, instead of dropping the jug when you get the ripping paper sound, drop the jug just a bit more and you'll get a louder, more aggressive sound, which is a sound of larger bubbles being created. And the rest of the process is exactly the same. Distribution happens after aeration and we call this rolling or spinning. We're trying to get a vortex going in the milk so the bubbles are distributed throughout the milk. But what I find with the thermocoil and thermoblock machines like these, which don't tend to have the same kind of steam power, is if you start off focusing on getting the milk spinning or rolling before aeration, it makes things a bit easier when it comes to the distribution phase, as the milk is already spinning. Heating happens after aeration and at the same time as distribution. You just stop the aeration by lifting up the milk jug slightly, keep the jug at the same angle and just keep the milk rolling until the desired temperature is reached. I'd recommend 60 to 65 degrees Celsius. If you take cow's milk to hotter than this, you start burning the lactose, so the milk loses its sweetness. Start off with cold milk. If your milk's already at room temperature, you don't have the same kind of window of opportunity to stretch it. You can only really stretch milk up until something like 35 degrees Celsius. Let's talk about milk volume. Don't overfill or underfill your jug. Personally, I normally fill the jug to just below the indentation of the spout. Listening is really important when you're steaming because milk makes different sounds depending on what you're doing to it. If the milk is screaming, it means you're steaming but not aerating, so drop the jug slightly so the air is taken in. If the milk is making a fairly subtle intermittent hissing or ripping paper sound, that's good. That's a sound of very small bubbles being created, which is what we want from microfoam for latte art. If the milk is making louder roaring and glugging sounds, this is a sound of bigger bubbles being created for stiffer foam. This is fine if you like thick foam, but it isn't what we want for latte art. So to talk about wand position, you want to pull the wand directly out like this and then lock the spout in to the wand or lock the wand into the spout and then drop the jug down so that the surface of the milk is level and so that the tip is pointing, is going into the centre of the milk, and then just jut the bottom of the jug out either way, whichever's more comfortable, like that or like that, just so the tip is about halfway between the edge of the jug and the centre. So you go in, you're locking in, dropping the jug down, and then jutting it out slightly. And we want to keep this position throughout the steaming process. The only thing we want to change is how close to the surface of the milk the wand tip is. Next, to talk about timings. This is slightly different depending on which machine you're using. If you're using the Bambino Plus, it's practically the same as that has the same newer thermojet heater and the 4-hole steam tip. The only difference is that the Bambino Plus seems to get to full steam power a second or two faster than the Barista Pro. So the initial milk rolling phase tends to be slightly quicker, only by a second or two though. I start off focusing on keeping the angle right and just trying to get the milk rolling. So the tip is under the surface slightly, no air being introduced. And with the Barista Pro, this usually takes something like 5 to 7 seconds, just until you can see the milk starting to move, starting to spin. And then we drop the jug slightly, keeping the angle, just starting to introduce air to the milk, aiming for that ripping paper sound. This usually goes on for around 30 to 35 seconds, and the jug will feel warm at this point, but you should still be able to keep your hand on it. And it'll be somewhere in the region of 35 degrees Celsius at this point. And then you just raise the jug slightly to stop the aeration. And then we're just rolling the milk and continuing to heat it to your preferred temperature. And for me, that's about 65 degrees Celsius. And then we're done. So enough talking, I'll now demonstrate. The jug feels warm now, the milk is looking glossier, so I'm just raising the jug slightly to stop the aeration. So there you go, steaming milk with the Sage or Breville Barista Pro. And if you're looking for a latte art guide, by the way, click here for the latte art guide by Lance Hedrick, because it's really good. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not click here to watch another one, and don't forget to click the like button, that really helps videos to do better on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to become an official Coffee Botherer, you need to click this image around here somewhere to subscribe to this channel, and to become an accredited Coffee Botherer, also known as Patreon supporter, just go to patreon.com/coffeeblogkev. Tatty bye!